My dear child, you have learned how to speak to me, but you have not yet learned how to truly be with me. And I see the way you come with carefully chosen words, repeated prayers, and practiced sentences, hoping they will reach me, hoping they will be enough, yet still feeling that quiet emptiness when you finish, that lingering question in your heart asking if I really heard you, and I need you to understand that I did. I always do. But what I long for is not just your prayers, it is your conversation, because there is a difference, a deep and sacred difference between speaking at me and speaking with me, and so many of my children have learned to speak at me while forgetting how to be with me, forgetting that you were never meant to approach me like a ritual or a routine, never meant to stand at a distance reciting words like a stranger trying to impress a king, because I am not distant from you. I am not waiting for perfect sentences or polished prayers. I am waiting for you, the real you, the unfiltered you, the one behind the words, because I already know what you are going to say before you say it. So why do you hide? Why do you come to me with rehearsed lines instead of your raw heart? Why do you speak in formal tones when your soul is crying out something entirely different? Why do you tell me what you think I want to hear instead of what you truly feel? When I can already see the silence between your words, I can already hear the truth behind your sentences, and I can already feel the distance that forms when you think you must perform instead of connect. And you need to know this deeply. You do not need to perform for me. You do not need to sound spiritual. You do not need to impress me. You do not need to follow a script or say the right thing. You do not even need to know what to say at all, because what I desire is not your perfection, but your presence. And I see how often you come to me only when you are overwhelmed, when life feels heavy, when confusion fills your mind and fear grips your heart. And yes, I am there in those moments. I listen, I comfort, I respond. But what about the moments when nothing is wrong? What about the quiet mornings and still evenings? What about the simple, ordinary spaces where life is just unfolding? Why don't you talk to me then? Why don't you sit with me without an agenda, without a request, without something you need fixed or changed? Do you know how rare it is for someone to simply be with me because they want me, and not just what I can do for them, because that is where real connection begins. That is where the relationship becomes alive. And prayer was never meant to be one-sided, never meant to be a checklist you complete and walk away from. It was meant to be an invitation into relationship. And relationships are built on conversation, not just speaking but listening, not just asking but sharing, not just words but presence. And if you look at your own life, you would never call it a real relationship. If someone only came to you, spoke their needs, and left without listening, without staying, without connecting. And yet this is how you often come to me, and still I wait, patiently, lovingly, not for your perfect prayer, but for your honest heart. I wait for the moment you stop trying to sound right and start being real. Because when you are real with me, everything changes. When you say you are confused, I am there. When you admit you are angry, I am listening. When you feel lost and tired, I am holding you closer than you realize. And even when you say nothing at all, when you simply sit in silence, feeling, breathing, existing in my presence, that too is conversation. Because some of the most powerful moments you will ever have with me are not filled with words, but with awareness. Awareness that I am near. Awareness that you're not alone. Awareness that even in your silence you are heard. But you have been taught to fill the silence, to rush through it, to avoid it, thinking that if nothing is being said, then nothing is happening. But silence is where I often speak the loudest, not in words, but in peace, not in sentences, but in stillness, not in explanations, but in presence. If only you would stay long enough to notice, if only you would linger just a little longer, instead of rushing away the moment your prayer ends, you would begin to feel me in ways you never have before, because I am not distant, I am not hiding, I am not ignoring you, I am right here, closer than your next breath. But connection requires awareness, and awareness requires stillness, and stillness is something you have been avoiding as you fill your life with noise and movement and constant distraction, always doing but rarely being, and because of that, you miss me. Not because I am absent, but because you are distracted, and I do not want to be just a small part of your routine. I want to be part of your life, not just present in your desperation, but present in your peace, not just included in your words, but included in your awareness. Because I am not only your creator or your provider or your protector. I am your closest companion, and yet you keep me at a distance without realizing how close I already am. You think you have to reach me when I am already here. You think you have to find the right words when I already understand your heart. You think you have to come at the right time when every moment is the right time. There is no perfect time to talk to me. There is only now, right where you are, as you are, and in this moment I am inviting you into something deeper, something more real than what you have known before, a conversation without rigid structure, a connection without rules, a relationship built not on performance but on presence. I want you to talk to me the way you think, speak to me the way you feel, share what is on your heart, even if it is messy or unclear or unfinished, because I am not looking for perfect words, I am looking for honesty, and when you begin to speak to me like that, something shifts within you. You no longer feel like you are speaking into emptiness. You begin to realize you are heard, deeply heard, fully known, and there is a freedom that comes from being completely known and still completely loved. That is what I offer you. Not judgment, not distance, not silence, but constant, unchanging presence. So come to me, not with perfect prayers, but with a real heart. Come to me not only when you need something, but when you simply want to be with me. Come to me not as someone trying to get it right, but as someone willing to be real, because that is where our relationship truly begins. And this is only the beginning of what I want to show you. My dear child, you have been waiting for a sign, something undeniable, something clear that proves I am truly listening to you. And in the quiet corners of your heart you have whispered, God, if you're really there, show me. Yet what you have not realized is that I have been showing you all along. Not always in loud or dramatic ways, not always in the form you expect, but in gentle nudges, in subtle shifts, in quiet moments that stayed with you longer than they should have. Because when you expect me to speak only through miracles, you begin to overlook the whispers, and most of my conversations with you happen in those whispers, in the sudden peace that settles over you without explanation, in a thought that feels wiser than your usual thinking, in a feeling that pulls you away from something that is not right, in a moment of clarity that arrives just when confusion felt overwhelming. That is, me speaking with you, guiding you, reaching you, but you often dismiss it, calling it coincidence, imagination, or overthinking, and so you continue to wait for something louder while ignoring what is already being said. And if you truly desire a real conversation with me, then you must learn to recognize my voice not only in extraordinary moments, but in the ordinary rhythm of your life, because I am present in your thoughts, your feelings, your awareness, and the more you slow down, the more you will begin to notice me. Yet this is where you struggle, because you speak but do not listen, or you listen only for the answers you wish to hear. And when my response challenges you, stretches you, or asks you to grow, you begin to believe I have gone silent. But I have not gone silent. You have simply stopped listening with an open heart, because real conversation is not about control, it is about connection. It is not about getting your way, but understanding my way. And sometimes my answer will be wait. Sometimes it will be trust. Sometimes it will be patience when you are asking for immediate change. And in those moments the conversation deepens, because now it is not just about speaking, but about surrendering. And surrender is where true transformation begins. You often think of conversation as an exchange of words, but with me, it is alignment. It is when your heart begins to sync with mine, when your thoughts begin to shift, not because you force them, but because something within you has softened and opened, and this change does not come from one moment of connection, but from staying with me, returning again and again, not out of obligation, but out of desire, because you begin to realize there is nowhere else you would rather be. Yet there are things I want to tell you that cannot be understood in rushed moments, truth that require your stillness and your willingness to remain present. But you often leave too soon. You say your prayer and move on. You speak your words and then fill your mind with noise. You ask your questions but do not wait for the answer. And so the conversation remains incomplete, like speaking to someone you love deeply and walking away before they respond. And you miss what could have changed everything. Because my response does not always come instantly. Not because I am distant, but because I am intentional. I speak at the right moment in the way your heart is ready to receive. But if you are always rushing, always distracted, always occupied, you will miss it, and then wonder why I am not speaking, when in truth you are not present to listen. Because a real conversation with me requires your full presence, not just your physical presence, but your mental and emotional attention. It requires you to be here fully, not divided between me and everything else. And I know your mind is busy, your life is full, your thoughts are scattered, but this is why I call you into stillness. Not to take something from you, but to give you something deeper. Clarity, peace, connection. Because when you become still, you begin to hear what was always there, feel what was always present, understand what once felt confusing, and slowly the conversation becomes clearer. You start recognizing my voice not as something distant, but as something that resonates within you, a knowing deeper than logic, a peace stronger than fear, a direction that feels right even when it is not easy. That is me guiding you, but guidance requires trust, and trust is built through relationship, not through occasional prayers, but through consistent, honest conversation, through showing up again and again, even when you do not feel anything, even when it seems quiet, because not every moment will feel powerful, not every conversation will feel emotional, some will feel simple, even ordinary. But do not underestimate those moments, because consistency builds connection, and connection builds awareness, and awareness reveals my presence in ways you have never known before. I do not want you to chase feelings. I want you to build a relationship, because feelings come and go, but relationship remains. There will be days you feel close to me, and days you feel distant, days everything makes sense, and days nothing does. But I remain the same in all of them. I do not move away from you. I do not disappear when you struggle. I do not become silent when you are confused. I am constant. It is your awareness that shifts, and that is why conversation matters, because it brings you back to awareness, back to presence, back to me. Even when you feel far, you are never truly far. Even when you feel alone, you are never truly alone. Even when you feel unheard, you are always heard. But you must allow yourself to experience that truth daily, not just in crisis, but in calm. Because the deeper your conversation with me becomes, the more your life begins to change, not always on the outside, but on the inside, and that inner change begins to shape everything else, the way you respond, the way you see, the way you feel, because you are no longer walking through life alone. You are walking with me, talking with me, living in awareness of me, and that is what you were created for, not just to believe in me, but to know me, not just to pray to me, but to walk with me, not just to seek me in moments of need, but to live in constant connection with me. So do not reduce this relationship to routine, or limit it to words, or confine it to specific times and places. Let it flow into every part of your life. Talk to me while you walk, while you think. In the middle of your day, include me, not as an afterthought, but as a constant presence, because I am already there, waiting not for your next perfect prayer, but for your next real moment. And when you begin to live like this, you will no longer ask if I am listening, because you will know you are not just speaking. You are in conversation, and this conversation is only getting deeper